Yeah, no, I'm not trying to be the highest paid. Obviously want to put this team in the best situation. Focused on the moment, on the now. Leaving that up to my agent and Jerry at this point. And when those talks begin, I'll be more involved, obviously. So
I know at this point I have a reputation of being the Dallas Cowboys fan that's a Cowboys hater. And it's not necessarily that I hate the Dallas Cowboys. It's more the fact that I can't stand the decisions that my favorite team happens to make. And I'm going to explain to you guys in this video how this entire situation could have been avoided. But now that we're in this situation, it looks like the Cowboys trio of Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons at some point or another will have to be broken up. Or it'll have to stay together and the Cowboys are going to continue to be in salary cap hell. There are multiple scenarios that could play out now that the Cowboys are in this situation, and that's the purpose of this video, to take you through each and every one of those scenarios. By the end of the video, I want you guys to let me know in the comment section down below which scenario you think is most likely. Before we get to the content, we're running a huge giveaway for College Football 25. I'm going to be giving away copies to my followers on Instagram and to my followers on Twitter. Both links are in the description down below. And now that we got all that out of the way, break! This is practically free money. To celebrate game 1 of the NBA Finals, PrizePicks is giving us a free square. All Jason Tatum needs is 1 point in the first game of the NBA Finals. To give you the best advantage, I highly recommend you enter these picks ASAP, because the closer you get to the game, the more likely the lines are going to get slimmer and slimmer. First, download PrizePicks and use my promo code FlightMike to get up to $100 of your deposit matched, and then enter this pick for game 1. Obviously, we're going to go with Jason Tatum. He's clearly going to get a point, but Derek Lively has always been able to get over 16.5 points, rebounds, and assists when he's been fully healthy. We're going to pick more on this. And then if you want to get really spicy, Derek White should easily be able to get 23.5 points, rebounds, and assists. He's done that for the last 5 games. I'm going to put $25 to win $125. And I give away additional picks on my Instagram story at the Flight Mike, so make sure you're followed there as well. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? This entire situation could have been avoided. And to give you an idea of how easily this could have been avoided, you have to go all the way back to Dak Prescott's rookie contract expiring about 5 years ago. You see, heading into the 2019 offseason, to set the stage, Aaron Rodgers was the highest paid player in the NFL at $33.5 million per year. He got a 4-year, $134 million extension from the Green Bay Packers during the 2018 preseason, and at the time you had multiple quarterbacks getting about $30 million a year, and that was the very top of the quarterback salary iceberg. For example, Matt Ryan received a 5-year, $150 million contract extension from the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins got an unprecedented 3-year, $84 million deal when he signed with the Vikings as a free agent. And now you had Dak Prescott, who was going into an offseason where the Cowboys were looking to re-sign him in addition to DeMarcus Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence was seeking a contract that would pay him about $20 million a year annually, and if the Cowboys were proactive, they could have made Dak Prescott the NFL's second highest paid player in order to get a deal done at the same time as DeMarcus Lawrence, meaning Dak could have been signed to a 4-year, $124 million contract extension that would have paid him $31 million per year. But in typical Cowboys fashion, they decided to wait as long as possible. I mean, to give you an idea, if the Cowboys signed Dak to this hypothetical contract, it would have been way before Russell Wilson got paid $35 million per year from the Seahawks. It would have been before Ben Roethlisberger got a 2-year, $68 million contract extension from the Steelers. And not only would have Dak Prescott gotten paid less, but on top of that, his contract would have expired sooner in 2023, meaning the Cowboys would have been in the market to extend Dak Prescott's contract during the same offseason that the Eagles signed Jalen Hurts, that paid him $255 million over 5 years. That saw Lamar Jackson signed for around a similar number as well, as opposed to the situation the Cowboys put themselves in now. Now, if you don't know what actually happened, the Dallas Cowboys decided to franchise tag Dak Prescott in 2019. Dak Prescott would suffer a leg injury the very next year, and then they ended up signing him to a 4-year, $160 million contract extension. This is one of the worst contracts I've ever seen in NFL history, because this contract is also backloaded, meaning that the Cowboys are essentially stuck between two decisions when it comes to Dak Prescott. You either get to keep Dak Dak Prescott and extend him and spread his cap hit over the remaining years of the contract, or you could let Dak Prescott hit free agency, but because his contract was backloaded, you're going to incur a $40 million dead cap hit once he hits free agency. Something that I must admit, I don't think I've ever seen before. Usually you get this type of penalty if you cut a quarterback, but in this case, if Dak just hits free agency, the Cowboys still get a dead cap hit. And this thing that the Cowboys do where they wait till the absolutely last minute to sign their players has never helped them. It's the exact opposite of what you should do. You take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and the moment they anticipated the wide receiver market was inflating, they signed Devontae Smith to a contract extension paying him $25 million a year annually, and then they extended AJ Brown, making him the highest paid wide receiver for a few weeks before Justin Jefferson completely shattered that number. And to give you an idea, I mean, just take a look at the highest paid wide receivers as of right now. You have Justin Jefferson, who's getting paid $35 million a year annually. Then you have AJ Brown getting paid $32 million a year annually. Then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown at $30.002 million. And this is where things get very complicated because the Cowboys' objective was to extend CeeDee Lamb before Justin Jefferson. If you had done so, you could have probably paid CeeDee Lamb the same exact money that AJ Brown was getting paid, $32 million. And given how challenging the Cowboys situation was, they could use every single penny currently. So as of now, you know what's going down. Now that Justin Jefferson got his contract extension, CeeDee Lamb is holding out for his contract extension. It makes a lot of sense. They're in the same draft class together. And since the Cowboys decided to take their sweet time with CeeDee Lamb, which for the life of me, I'll never understand why they do this. I don't see a single benefit to doing this, but now it's very likely that CeeDee Lamb is going to get paid the same amount of money or maybe $1 million less than Justin Jefferson. And he has a very legitimate case, by the way. He wasn't always as dominant as Justin Jefferson, but if you take a look at his numbers, he's steadily improved each and every year till this past year where he had a prolific 12 touchdowns and over 1,700 receiving yards. And the crazy part is Dak Prescott has a very similar argument that he can make. Sure, you've seen interviews where Dak Prescott said this.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to be the highest paid necessarily. So we'll wait until negotiations begin, and obviously want to put this team in the best situation. So.
And sure, Cowboy fans last remember Dak Prescott for choking against the Green Bay Packers. But when you're coming off of a regular season where you threw for over 4,500 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, when you completed almost 70% of your passes, there's no way you are going to accept less than resetting the quarterback market. And that is the reality of the situation. Now, the Cowboys have 3 important key members of their roster to pay. The first being CeeDee Lamb, who probably won't play another snap for the Cowboys until he gets that contract extension. The next being Dak Prescott, who is a huge question mark, which we're going to get to in a second because he might be the most likely to leave the Cowboys. And then the final one obviously being Micah Parsons. Now, we're not going to be in a situation where Micah Parsons needs a new contract until next offseason, but this contract isn't that difficult to project. Whenever you talk about edge rushers in the NFL, Micah Parsons is up there with some of the best edge rushers in the league. I mean, you have Myles Garrett, you have Nick Bosa, and you have Micah Parsons. In any order, you can make legitimate arguments for each of those players being the best edge rusher in the NFL. Myles Garrett might be the most consistent, Nick Bosa might be the most dominant, but there's no question about it, Micah Parsons is the most versatile. And the crazy part is, Micah Parsons is currently also skipping OTAs, although his reasoning is so he could train by himself. Whether you want to put stock into that or not is up to you, but here's the exact reason why Micah Parsons decided to skip OTAs, because he's also seeking a new contract. Yeah, you know, I think the more years you have, the more you understand that there's also like the business side to it. You know, I think that's what camp is for. I mean, there was a time where Aaron Donald didn't even go to camp and he won Defensive Player of the Year and then went to the playoffs. Like, are we forgetting these times? Like, we wasn't talking about the best defensive player wasn't even in camp, and we're in mini camps, voluntary at that. So, you know, camp was something that is mandatory. So I'm looking at it as just time for my body to heal. I'm playing as an undersized rusher who is banged up every year. So I'm just letting my body heal. I'm just trying to grow, strengthen, and really just get ready for the year. So it's kind of confusing because on one hand, he says, you know, there's a business side to everything. But on the other hand, he's like, well, my body's banged up, so it needs to heal. So the reality is Micah Parsons is also sending a message to the Cowboys saying, yo, you guys better fucking pay me. Now, it's not hard to anticipate Micah Parsons' contract. Chances are he's going to try to reset the edge rusher market. Nick Bosa was paid $34 million, so expect Micah Parsons to get $34 or $35 million. Expect CeeDee Lamb them to receive $34 or $35 million. In the case of Micah, the Cowboys didn't really have a choice. In the case of CD, the Cowboys definitely could have played this a little bit better and immediately inked him to a contract the moment that they could. And in the case of Dak Prescott, well, the Cowboys completely ruined any hope of competing with this core for the future as a result of how horribly they managed their negotiation with him. So now there are multiple scenarios for the Dallas Cowboys to play out here, and a lot of it depends on how the regular season goes. And I have to admit, a lot of this is speculative, but it's June and we're making content based upon how specific scenarios play out. So if you guys remember earlier in the offseason, there's a lot of speculation that Jerry Jones is going to go after Bill Belichick, but he ended up keeping Mike McCarthy. Why? Because Jerry Jones is notorious for being cheap. Mike McCarthy had one more year on his contract. Jerry Jones didn't want to fire him with one more year on his contract. Plus, there's a very legitimate argument to be made for a head coach that has consistently made it to the playoffs with this core. So I could understand bringing him back for another season, because if you look at Mike McCarthy's track record with the Cowboys, it's been pretty solid. And I hate to admit that, but that's true. But after this season, Mike McCarthy's contract expires, and whether or not the Cowboys renew it has to do with how the season goes. I personally am projecting the Cowboys to not even make it to the playoffs this year. I know it's really harsh, but the reality is they lost Dan Quinn. Their team got objectively weaker in the offseason. They lost Tyron Smith. They lost Tyler Biadasz. They lost Dorrance Armstrong. Leighton Vander Esch also retired. They lost Dante Fowler. There's a question of whether Stephon Gilmore returns. And it looks like they added Eric Kendricks, who, by the way, might be an upgrade over Leighton Vander Esch. If the Cowboys don't make it to the playoffs, expect Mike McCarthy to be fired. Expect Jerry Jones to start chasing the pot of gold. What is the pot of gold? Well, the pot of gold in this instance could be Bill Belichick, but the pot of gold in this instance could also be a brand new quarterback. Who would the brand new quarterback be? Well, option A would be seeing what you have with Trey Lance. If things really go south for the Cowboys at the latter part of this season, you could expect the Cowboys to put in Trey Lance to see what they have in him. After sitting behind Dak Prescott for a full season and a half, maybe 2 seasons this year, it is very reasonable to speculate maybe some development happened as Trey Lance has been riding the bench. How much development remains to be seen. I'm not necessarily sure if we could expect a Jordan Love-like leap from Trey Lance. But of course, when you have the former number 3 overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft on your roster, when you've actually given him time to sit back and develop, especially considering that he was the biggest project in the draft, it definitely is worth seeing what you have in him. And option A could be going into the very next year with Trey Lance as your quarterback 1, and based upon his performance in the 2025 season, as you are paying off that cap penalty, which by the way, it's not going to be the greatest season, but at the very minimum, you're going to retain Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb at that point. Based off of that, you can make a decision on whether or not he is going to be your QB of the future. If the Cowboys have a successful season, I'm expecting them to bring back Dak Prescott, sign him to a 4-year contract that pays him $60 million a year annually, try to spread out his remaining cap hit over the final years of his contract, and move forward with Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott once again. But the third option is essentially Jerry Jones chasing the pot of gold. I could see the Cowboys moving on from Dak Prescott if the Cowboys don't make it to the playoffs. And if Colorado has another bad season, if Shedeur Sanders isn't entrenched as the number 1 overall pick, given Jerry Jones's history with Deion Sanders, given how marketable of a name Shedeur Sanders is, I could see the Cowboys pursuing Shedeur Sanders. Deion Sanders has already made it known that there are a few teams he would allow Shedeur Sanders to play for professionally. One of those teams being the Dallas Cowboys. Shedeur Sanders was asked in April of 2024 on the All the Smoke podcast, who would he like to throw the football to? And his answer?
Give me a dream wide receiver that you would want to throw to, Shedeur.
CeeDee Lamb.
Oh, Prime.
Oh, Lord.
Dream safety.
He trying to get something started. Y'all ain't catch that.
What is that?
CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb.
Uh-oh. I talked to him.
Yeah,
Super Bowl.
it stopped because you know where it's going to go.
Yeah. I hope it goes.
Yeah, this is
I
where
hope
it's
it
going to
goes.
go.
You know, I'm the
Yeah,
biggest
he hit that
Cowboy
hard.
fan in the world.
Yeah.
So he's already flirting with the Cowboys a little bit. Now, as a Cowboy fan, do I think this is a huge improvement over Dak Prescott? To be honest, no. I'm not necessarily sure it is. And this is nothing against Shedeur Sanders. I mean, so far, it's very difficult to grade him as a prospect. Respectfully, he's played on a very marketable football team that knows how to generate hype. He knows how to generate publicity and attention to himself. And for the most part, in year 1, although I think he had some good moments for Colorado, a lot of his stats have come from stat padding. Respectfully, and this is as someone that's been following him and has made multiple videos on him. Could he be successful in the NFL? Most definitely. Do I think he's a a can't miss prospect like Caleb Williams? No, most definitely not. But I also don't see the Cowboys finishing with the #1 overall pick in this NFL draft. So at the same time, Shedeur Sanders' draft stock is going to have to tank considerably, which I could also see happening. And in this scenario, Shedeur Sanders joins the struggling Cowboys in year 1. The Cowboys eat up the $40 million cap hit that Dak Prescott leaves from leaving them in free agency, and they reset the contract clock at the quarterback position. At the end of the day, I think Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb are going to return no matter what. And as they should. Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb are two remarkable players. I think Dak Prescott is an incredible player in his own right, and he has a very legitimate reason to ask for $60 million a year annually. At the same time, I could see either scenario where the Cowboys bring him back or the Cowboys move on from him. I think the craziest scenario that I could imagine happening, but there's a lot of speculation here occurring, is I could see the Cowboys not making it to the playoffs this year. As a result, the Cowboys decide to move on from Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy. Shedeur Sanders decides not to declare for the 2024 NFL Draft. The Cowboys then go into the 2025 season with Trey Lance as their starting QB. Trey Lance doesn't necessarily prove that he should be the future of the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys finish with a top 3 or a top 5 pick. Now, again, do I think this is going to improve the Dallas Cowboys significantly? Not necessarily. There's so many unknown factors here, and there's so much speculation at play here that I can imagine us being in the cellar of the NFC East moving forward. And that's nothing against the Cowboys. It's just when you take a look at the Washington Commanders and you take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they actually know what they're doing. The Eagles are consistently making their money work for them. They're consistently beating out the pack in terms of extending their players. And that's why they've been so successful so far. And that's why I think they'll continue to be successful. Even the Washington Commanders, they had a tremendous amount of cap space. If they hit on Jaden Daniels, they already have a complete wide receiver core. Their defense is up and coming as well, at least on paper. So whenever your rivals are consistently getting better, but you're stagnating or getting worse, how could you expect to have a good season? I hope I'm wrong as a fan, but I'm just being realistic. At the end of the day, I know some of these scenarios are far-fetched, so I want to get your take in the comment section down below. Do you think the Cowboys will draft Shedeur Sanders? Do you think they'll sign Bill Belichick? Do you think they'll have a good season? Maybe I'm just too pessimistic. I like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.